Hello, Shauna.
Hi, Richard. Happy Wednesday night.
It's
Happy
my favorite.
Metaverse News Network broadcasting night.
Definitely my favorite. I do love these nights. The chats and the communications and just being able to share thoughts. It's so fun where it's public. You know what I mean? It's kind of like this diary of how we're learning things over the weeks with all the people that we're interacting with. And I
Yes,
think you and I are learning more than anyone from this experience, which is truly fun.
yes, we had a great week last week with Paul King from PFP
Hmm.
Daily. Had some good
Hmm.
conversation with him about the downside of the metaverse.
Hmm.
And do you remember very early on, towards the beginning of our broadcast, we interviewed a gentleman out of Pakistan, Oren
Hmm.
Rizvi, who
Hmm.
has a fantastic company called
Hmm.
Nuisance. Well, I don't know if you remember, but Oren was expecting a baby, and
Ah,
I
that
heard from
little.
him today that his son was born on January 12th, and we want to wish
That's
him and his
amazing.
family the very best. I did get to see a photo, and it was just amazingly beautiful.
I will be
He's got a
sending him
head of
some
hair,
congratulations tomorrow.
and his little eyes were closed tight, tight, but just so beautiful. And I know that On's thrilled to be a dad, so congratulations there.
It's so
Tonight,
fun to see the community grow, isn't it?
it is,
Now, even more literally than any other way.
yeah, and to get to know the personalities and the people and the companies. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
my own knowledge of the companies and what they're doing in this
Hmm.
space is growing phenomenally,
Hmm.
and I know yours is as well.
Hmm.
So tonight we just wanted to kind of relax a little bit. It's just Richard and I. Richard is in Austin tonight. I'm still on the central coast of California, and we wanted to take this opportunity to talk with Richard a little bit about his photography, his documentary work. I also wanted to ask Richard a little bit about what he's seen in NFTs
Hmm.
and talk about the aesthetics of the NFT.
Hmm.
Um, what qualifies in your mind as a excellent, maturated, sophisticated project, and
Hmm.
what you see that's just kind of like, I did something, I threw it up, and let me put it on OpenSea and see what happens. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
With pleasure. I love talking about this stuff. I mean, of all the things to talk about, my work is my favorite.
So earlier this year, was it this year or last year? Last year,
Hmm.
I don't know how many of you know this, but we had a wonderful opportunity with ArtGate and their Biennale.
Hmm.
And Richard was very instrumental in sharing some of his photography work in that gallery exhibition, which was a VR exhibition. Do you have a little bit of that we could review and take a look at tonight?
Well, I have some of the photos that we can have a look at. They're all on my
Would
website, so we can just.
love to see
So
that.
what I'm
Yeah.
going to do is just. So for me, one of the things that I don't get to share very often with people is I like the story. I mean, for me, all of my photos are connected directly to story. So how everyone else views their photos as art or these kind of things, for me, all the photo is a hard connection to the memory. So a lot of what I get to share is just that, and I know when I try and put things out on Instagram and so on, I try to give a little blurb about it. But it's different to actually hear me telling the story of what I remember from the photos, more than actually the photo. So it's nice to actually share some of that as well, because in my experience, that's more than they are. I don't see them as pieces of art. I see them as a memory of the experience of taking the photo. So let me see. Okay, so
I can
website.
I can understand that as you're trying to research that and pull it up and share the screen.
Hmm.
Because as an analog artist, it's very true that when I'm creating a piece, that when I go back and look at the piece, there's a transportive element that takes me right back to the time and place that I created it, whether it
Hmm.
was 3 years ago, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago.
Yeah,
So I think that when you put so much of your soul into something, oh, this is beautiful, Richard, that
thank you.
it can have that capability. But yes, tell us a little bit about dynamically malleable Richard Murat and his beautiful photography.
Well, the dynamically malleable is actually a label that you gave me. I think
And
that was
it
in one of our
so
very first
applies.
conversations.
And it applies so well.
For me, it was a case of so many photographers are so specific in their skill set, and I like a little bit of everything. So I liked the way when you said it that it implied the fact that it doesn't matter what kind of photography I play with, I'm malleable enough to do something with it. And that kind of I enjoy that.
Yes.
I enjoy that.
And we'll see
So
that as you share some of the range of the works that you've done. So can you walk us through, take us on a little tour?
well,
This would be
okay, so
fun.
let's start with this one. The one on the left here, the purple. So this is the Bow Bridge in Central Park.
And can we enlarge that just a little
Yeah,
bit so
sure.
people can see the one of the things that I love about Richard's work is he has this visual acuity that's very rare in photography. And he has an extreme eye for color and composition. So this first image is a perfect example of that. That there's this architectural element, and yet there's almost this Japanese wabi sabi kind of element going on in terms of the ethereal
Yeah.
feel of the photography. But tell us what was happening here.
Well, so for me, there's one thing that makes this photo, and it's completely random luck. And that's that little green tree just in the middle there. That in all of this sea of magenta and this dark sky and night, there's this one little green tree. That's my favorite thing about this photo is that one little green patch in all of this purple and magenta. The other thing I really like about this photo is you don't get to see it quite at this scale, but I have this one actually printed. This one was in a public art exhibition in New York City, and
Yeah,
it was in what was it, Battery Park Plaza, One Battery Park Plaza. This print was actually up of this image, and when that finished, I now have this print at home. And the thing that I love the most when you actually see it in the size and the printed is you can see the different layers to it, and it almost feels 3D when you get to see it. Like these edges here, where you start to see the movement back onto the gap through the trees into the thing, it
right.
really stands out and gives you this beautiful layering 3D effect to the image. That you can kind of start to see it in the digital, but only when it's like really printed and you see it at like 40 by 30 and so on. It just slaps you in the face. So yeah,
And
that's
what I love about this was dusk, and you still have the lights on top of the skyscraper. Those two
mm,
white lights in the 11 o'clock position,
yeah.
just sort of, bring that feeling of okay, there's still work
Well,
going on. There's still people here.
this wasn't actually dusk. This was
Oh,
shot at about midnight.
oh, really? Oh, I didn't realize
Yeah.
that. Okay,
So
yeah,
what it was the middle of winter. We'd just kind of got to New York, and I was feeling my space around this art photography thing. And I'd been on cruise ships and traveling for a long time, so I'd never really thought of my photography as like fine art photography. And the kind of space just opened up to kind of think about this as something to pursue rather than just portraits and real estate work and just that kind of work, that there'd be a market for my work that I love to do, which is this kind of stuff. And I remember coming back after shooting this photo and going, yeah, okay, maybe I can take on this fine art thing and actually do something with it. So this image for me is pivotal. It was the image, literally it is the image that allowed me to convince myself to follow um, the fine art route, to actually see to sell prints and so on.
I
Yeah.
love it so much.
Yeah, so this one was also when we were in Manhattan. I was prepping for my first solo exhibit at Eilon Gallery in Manhattan. And at the gallery, what we did in order to kind of amp up the kind of feet through the door and so on was there was this big massive charity auction at the 94th Street Y, which is it was going towards the children's facilities, and I gave them a copy of this printed on metal to sell at the auction, and it was the only art piece that sold at the auction. So yeah, that was quite nice. So it's been quite a popular image.
Okay, let's take a look at what's next.
What's next? I can talk about it. So now we're going straight to the
Wow.
other side, and we're going back down into the macro line. I love macro. I
I do
lose
as well.
time. For me, it's like losing time because it's like meditative, and especially the way I do it, because I do it completely handheld, no tripod, no reflector. So it's completely natural light, and trying to chase a fly around a patch of flowers. Yeah, so I was in the Kruger National Park, and we'd been driving and we got up into the campsite. I think it was Lataba campsite. And there was this big impala lily, which is the name of the plant in the background, the pink. It's called an impala lily. And this impala lily was right at the entrance to the reception. And my friend who we were traveling it, she'd gone inside to go and book us in and get us into the campsite. And I sat there for about half an hour chasing this fly around this bush until I got this image. Yeah.
So his eyes almost look jewel tone, almost look like they're cut like jewels,
Mm-hmm.
like diamonds. So why, I've seen a few images, very rare, very
Mm-hmm.
few, that are like this, that are represented as NFTs, but not so many. Why do
Mm.
you think it is that more photography isn't shown as NFTs?
Um. Well, the first thing on this side is to be thinking of where have photographers earned their money for so long. I mean, photography, it's not like these other arts that have suddenly found NFTs as a way to monetize. There's always been a way to monetize photography. You can go and sell prints, or you can go and do corporate work. I mean, before my work, I was managing a photo department on cruise ships. So there's more than one way to interact with photography as a profession. And that means that the people who are serious professionals at it are already earning income streams from their digital art. So I suspect there's this gap between the professionals who are already in the scene doing commercial work and doing that kind of thing and earning money from it, and the young upcoming photographers who are now trying to find ways to earn money. Because like any art, there's a there's a horrible distribution of work for a simple point of experience. You know what I mean? If we're looking to a magazine, who is a magazine going to hire? Me, with 22 years of experience and a gallery that proves my work, or someone just out of university? They're going to choose me every time, unfortunately. And the reason I know that that's going to happen is because I've had to fight through it.
Mm.
I had to do X amount of years on cruise ships where all I was doing was basically practicing. You know what I mean? That's part of the
Yeah, and building
journey
up a
for
body of
artists.
work. Yes.
Exactly. So, and learning the skills, and learning not just the skills of what to do with the camera, but how to interact with subjects,
Yeah.
how to interact with clients, what is the correct way to run a business, what is a budget,
Hmm.
how should I, you know what I mean? All of those things of how to run a shoot. Who's going to know that? A guy just out of university? How
Hmm.
is that person going to deal with a Russian model who hardly speaks English?
Exactly.
You know
Right.
what I mean?
And
So
when you're querying magazines or newspapers and you're dealing with editors, particularly photo editors, they want somebody who they can send an assignment, knows what they're doing, will come back with some quality shots, and it's simple, you know,
and
quick,
that's
quick.
trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's trust. So photographers and so on have to kind of think of how do they develop trust. because once you've developed the trust, then you can start gaining clients or something. Or once you've developed the trust in your imagery and also maybe the trust in your skills that you know what you're doing enough that you can start doing these conversations and getting in, then yeah, but what I'm saying is there's already a pathway there for people to make money from photography. And people do make a lot of money from photography, and there are a very small percentage of photographers that are doing extremely well. I mean, Peter Lick is not doing badly.
Mm.
He's not doing badly at all. And there's a couple of other fine art photographers that are doing really, really well. But there's maybe 10 of them. I mean, then you have the people that are working at National Geographic. That's a different set of photographers. Then you've got the people doing magazine work. That's a different set of photographers. Then you've got people doing nature work. That's a different set of photography. So there's all of these skill sets that are already taking photos and putting them into pre-existing money-bearing projects. Let's call them projects. But there's also a case of the people who now have these assets don't know what to do with them. I was speaking with a National Geographic photographer a couple of months ago now. And he's sitting with this huge trove of photos that literally is amazing. I went to his house. He's been a wildlife photographer. I think he said 96 covers on National Geographic or something down the line. He's the most beautiful, amazing man, soft, delicate, well-spoken, cares, amazing man. And he took me into his workroom, and he had, you know, those old metal drawers that they actually pull out, and then they've got the slide decks. But each one, you pull them out the filing deck, and there's these reams and reams and reams of transparencies, and you pull them out, and it's from his travels through the Amazon when he was living with the people in the Amazon, and there's this trove of work and this body of work that is just sat there. And as that kind of photographer starts to get educated on how to get that work out so that new people can experience it, then there's going to start being more interest in the photography online. But at the moment, look, I say this now, one of the most expensive NFTs that is ever going to happen in history is when the Afghan girl gets put up as an NFT.
Yes.
That is going to be a massive deal when
shot, yeah.
Exactly. As soon as that Afghan girl hits an NFT, that's going to break Beeble's record without even thinking about it.
Yes.
That's going to be the first $100 million NFT as soon as someone can tap on his door.
Yeah.
But the level of photographer that has that name is also now old. And that old guard. So I've always dealt with the problem of how is someone going to hire me when there's a Steve or a Pete or all of those people in line. So the slow movement into the generation of working photographers as photographers retire and move out of it on the far end, it's generational. It takes time.
Well, it also speaks to developing a niche market, right? Which is what so many photographers do. They'll specialize just in travel or just in architectural photography or whatever the case may be. But I've always been of the mind that it's better to be a generalist in terms of your subject matter because there's more applicability. So you showed us a beautiful nature photograph. What comes next after that? Let's see a little bit more.
Hold on, let me just pull back up.
Okay.
Where did that go? Okay, there we go. Let's move further down a little bit.
Because you do have quite a wide array and a broad approach. You've done some figurative work, some more literal work. So I'd love to be able to share that.
I think the main one is just a whole lot of nature up front. Let's have a look. Okay, so yeah, that one, this was a leopard. I was working in the Kruger National Park as a ranger, and I was taking a game drive. I think it was about 5 Portuguese people that I was taking into the park with me. And we just came in the gate, and it's about just after 6 in the morning, the sun's just coming up, and this leopard just sat in this tree and looked at us. And that's it. He just stayed there. and posed for about half an hour watching the sun come up.
Look
Calm
how,
as anything.
look how perfectly his tail is right down the center of that trunk. Just gorgeous. Just
Uh,
gorgeous.
and it's those
Beautiful.
moments of those experiences where you see an animal or a creature in the wild and there's the silence. It's pretty special. Any animal encounter is always something that is special.
Yeah.
And what else is next? Let's see what's
Okay,
next.
what's next after that? Oh, I like this.
Talk about
Yeah.
from one extreme to the
To the
other.
other. Yeah.
So this is Grand Central. So this is the subway station inside of Grand Central. Fun story. So this was taken. We just moved to New York. So Kelsey and I were very new in New York, and I just started now getting involved in going out and taking these high def HDR long exposures like this. So I was wandering around thinking, where shall I go? So I'm wandering around Grand Central with a camera and a tripod. And I was like, oh, this looks nice. I line it all up. I sit down on the tripod. I get four of the five images in the HDR sequence taken. And I get this tap of my shoulder as the security guard is like, you can't take photos in here. I was like, I
Oops.
started speaking in Afrikaans because I was like, I'm just going to pretend to be the tourist and get
Yeah.
out of here. So I thanked him in Afrikaans and I waved and I picked up my tripod and I ran out of Grand Central really fast.
Sure, sure. I love this for the disappearing perspective point in the back and the illumination of those horrible fluorescent bulbs. Whoever invented those should be shot on the
I
spot.
know.
But then you got
I
this
like the
gorgeous,
symmetry of it.
yeah,
I
this
like
gorgeous
symmetry.
yellow paint of a walkway, the pedestrian walkway. And then, this sort of abandoned, decaying, empty void in the background. Very interesting.
Have you
Oh,
spent
what's
any
next?
time on the subway in
Yes,
Manhattan?
yes, I have. Yes,
And that's how it feels though, isn't it? You walk
yes,
down there and one of the reasons I love this photo is for me it captures how it felt to walk in that subway. There's this prettiness to it and there's this image of New York, but then there's this reality of New York as well, of it's dirty, there's feet, nobody really cares, there's this gunge to it as well, but it's New York. So yeah, I
I
always find the juxtaposition of that interesting.
I get that feeling the most in the subway when you get to the station, and as the name of the station is painted on those tiles, those white tiles, I get that same feeling there.
White?
But this is a different perspective of, the tracks themselves. Where are people going and coming from? And this is part of why I think photography has so much to it, because it does tell a story, and it is only a snippet of a much larger um, context.
I also like that you can read what you want into it.
Absolutely. Right?
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? For
Make it
me,
your
I
own.
mean,
Yeah.
the difference for me in taking it, when I'm actually taking it, I'm not so much thinking of why I'm taking it. I'm thinking of, I see pretty lines. So for me, the thought of all of those, what it ends up representing, is almost an afterthought because that kind of comes when I've then spent time with the photo and I think, oh, look what I see in here, look what I captured here. But when I'm actually taking it, I'm not thinking any of that. All I'm seeing is look at pretty lines. I can see
Yeah.
the leading lines, I can see where they're going, and I can sit and I can set up on that. And I can see those symmetries. But the feeling of the photo, especially since they're HDR, so it's 5 images then compressed. When you've actually taken it, you don't actually know what it's going to look like. I enjoy that part of the process as well because I learned on film. You know what I mean? I learned photography on film where you had to wait to develop it, or you had to put your transparency through the chemicals, and you had to go, okay, how long do I want it to be in the dev? Do I want to
Hmm.
push it? Do I need to pull it? What was the exposure like? There was a technique and an art to seeing what you were going to get out the far side before it was actually done. And I like that about the HDR. I get there, I get my sequence shot, but I have no idea what it looks like until I've merged them.
Mm. So in the beginning, much more of a tactile experience, and now with the advancing technology, much more of a experiential, exploratory experience, right?
Well, and that came from knowledge first, actually, because What happened was I was on the Dawn Princess, and I needed to when I first got to the ship, I needed to absolutely gut the lab because it wasn't looking particularly good. So I remember in that process, I gutted the lab, got it all cleaned out, got the stuff working in about a month, got the whole team down there, did it, sorted it, and now I had this like 4 months ahead of me where I had a pristine, perfect running lab because I'd fixed everything. So I was just sitting around and I was like, okay, now what do I do? And I started getting heavily involved with digital spaces and digital textbooks about digital light and how it all works and what color spaces are and what are we actually recording onto, because we knew film quite well. I mean, as you learned film, it was a pretty easy space to kind of understand. But digital actually has more limitations than film. So in order to figure out how to work around those limitations, I took a deeper dive into how light and color is recorded on the CCD and how that works. And then from there then developed into doing HDRs for one simple reason, and that was just to be able to expand my color scope. And then after finding out that there's now techniques that I can use on a digital round that not only fill into what I could have done with film, but now I've got more, all of a sudden that became interesting. And the other thing that for me is interesting, and I'll tell on this kind of group, I don't retouch much. I don't retouch much at all. I fix my white point, I fix my black point, I fix my contrast, I fix my hue, and I fix my saturation. That's it. I don't dodge, I don't burn, I don't do any of that stuff. I literally, if it takes me more than 20 minutes to edit an HDR in out, that's too much.
I mean, maybe what you're alluding to is this, technical expertise goes back to the question I just asked, which is why aren't we seeing more NFT photography? I mean, maybe there is on the digital side, much more complexity in getting the image to look the way you want it to look, and the time that's involved in manipulating the image.
But then is it a photo? But then is it a photo? So there's already people putting stuff out there that is digital art, that they've taken photos and then they've enhanced it. There's this one lady I know, she takes photos and then she paints over them. In one of the communities I'm with, her work is absolutely amazing. I was going to use her in one of the gallery shows that we were going to do, but I couldn't because it wasn't a photo. You mean, and where is this line between digital art that are collected and so on? Because I can promise you now, I can do anything in Photoshop. Like, people do not understand how much can be done in Photoshop and how much is done in Photoshop. Like, you walk down a high street anywhere and you look at the amount of Photoshop that's in the photos that we see on boardwalks and on side, and the majority of it's Photoshop. Like, I have yet to see a piece of jewelry that the model is actually wearing. It's all Photoshopped in. It's all Photoshopped in. And Kelsey gets so upset with me because we're walking down the high street and I'm critiquing the photos as we go past them, and it's not well. I'm not. But so people don't understand how much can be done and how much is done in Photoshops and After Effects. And to me, where are we losing the ability to paint with light and use the camera, and where are we digital artists? Because at some point or another, the camera doesn't make a difference in that.
Yes, and to that end, one of the greatest things about NFT and Metaverse is that we can take these digital images, this photography, and we can start to explore new ways to use that. So I know of somebody, whose name I'm not going to mention, that has just recently undergone a phenomenal project of matching some time and space photography from a location up with some new ways of producing video. Would you know anything about that?
Well, you mean this little project I'm working on?
Oh, yes. Let's see it.
So this is a working kind of starter for what we were doing, and this is not the real one, and this is unlisted, so the only place you're going to see it is now, and then it's not going to be visible again. So it's an unlisted print
That's how
preview.
we'd like to roll. We'd like to have exclusive content for exclusive listeners in an
Do you
exclusive network.
remember? Do you remember last year I did an hour-long live where we took a time lapse?
Yes.
You shared it. The time lapse that I'm about to show you is the one that we took that day.
So this is from what location?
This is from Cherry Creek. Well, it's the Canadian River
Okay.
in Norman, Oklahoma. I kind
Okay.
of walk up Cherry Creek and then walk to it. Okay,
Perfect.
so now what we're doing is this is a test one we've done, and the real project is a little bit more, but we'll just share this one. So what it is, I
Okay.
don't know. Will you be able to hear it? Let me share the window.
Y'all are gonna love this. I've been privy to see a more developed concept than what Rich is going to share right now. And just phenomenal, phenomenal.
Yeah, we're quite excited about this one. Okay, so here, this is the one we want to share. Okay, so
Here
let's
we
see what
go.
everyone can see.
And let's make the screen a little bit bigger if we can. I don't know if you're able
Okay,
to.
hold on. Let me just see what
Because I
I
want
can do.
people to get a close up.
Okay, let's just change that. Let's see what that does.
Yeah,
Does that give you a
that's
better
great.
view?
Perfect. That is beautiful.
Okay, so now let's
And
play
so this
it. And
is
I hope
Richard Morant's work. This speaks to how he's moved from a standard image, straight image photographer, point and place, to now much more of a documentarian in terms of placemaking and creating meaning behind nature, art, and technology as a combination. So let's see it, Richard.
I hope everyone can hear it. I don't know if it's going to share the sound.
Okay.
Let's see. I know I can hear the sound.
And how much time would you say this time lapse encompasses?
It took about an hour to take. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one was about an hour.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, now let me just
So
bring it a little bit.
Were you able to hear that, or was it just the images?
No, but the image itself was beautiful.
Okay, so what we've done then is myself and Jeremy Tisser. Jeremy was the gentleman on with me 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
Jeremy was with us.
The musician.
So Jeremy's the musician, so he crafted the music that goes with that. So while it's playing the beautiful visual, there's a beautiful soundtrack in the background. And this was August last year, so this was before I went to South Africa with my dad. Then when I went to South Africa, I started taking a lot of time lapses in South Africa. That's the last time I've really been publishing a lot on Instagram and social media. I've been hiding a little bit subsequently, unfortunately, but I had great fun creating the story and creating the backstory and creating the stories of going and taking all these time lapses. Then we came back and I handed them over to Jeremy, and he absolutely loved them. So he's now put 2 more to sound. And at the time, he was working with an incredible singer. Her name is Ashley Tamar Davis.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, she's such a fun story. She's one of the most incredible people I've had the pleasure of meeting. Where she was one of the original Destiny's Child at the age of 10. And then just before they got big, her mother said, hold on, you need to be in school. So she then went back to school and watched her friends in Destiny's Child blow up. I mean, just knowing that story is crazy. Anyway, she's so talented. She worked with Prince. She worked with everyone. So now between the 3 of us, we have now collaborated to make these beautiful time lapses.
Yes.
With incredible music.
Yes.
And the music, Jeremy is just finished. We've been doing it for the last 2 weeks. We've been working on the music with the orchestra in Macedonia. So what you just would have heard was actually all digital music. So it was all done on the synthesizer, Jeremy sitting at home with his computer synthesizer putting it in.
Right.
But now we've actually had it recorded by a Philharmonic orchestra. And then Ashley's been singing on it. And they make me very happy.
Ashley's voice is unbelievable, sterling, stellar. pristine, beautiful, beautiful. But this speaks to, your ability to kind of shift into this creator content mode where you're always thinking about how to push the boundaries forward and how to grow in new directions. And it's one of the reasons that I'm so thrilled that you're part of our network,
Thank
particularly
you.
as you and I move forward in
Hmm.
this coming year with some of the photography based projects that we want to try
Hmm.
to do as much as we can. Are you able to share, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so I understand if you have to say no, but are you able to share the original promotional clip for Kulu Treks?
Yeah, sure.
So while
Um,
Richard's digging that up, let me just do a little bit of an
oh,
introduction.
that's easy, but I don't know if it'll come through with the music. I mean, the music, we won a Telly Award for the music. If everyone's going to see it, I'd like them to see the music. So,
Yeah,
how about we do this? I'll put, when we launch this,
yeah.
I will put a link to the Kulu Treks teaser in all of these posts so that people
Okay,
can
perfect.
reference what we're seeing now, because that they need to see it with music. And
Absolutely. I agree.
because
Yes.
I mean, we got the Telly Award for the music, it kind of feels wrong to
Yes, I
not show
agree.
it
You
with
need
that.
the sound.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I will link that inside of the posts that this goes
Okay.
out with.
So let me ask you, what is, I know that a great deal of your time on a day to day basis is spent pursuing projects and immersing yourself in the metaverse and NFT world. And then you've got some, uh, you used a word the other day, I didn't even know what this word was, but photogrammetry. What was it, that word about this new 3D?
Photogrammetic.
Thank you,
Okay,
3D,
so
4D technology.
yeah, so that's working with the 3D space. So when I was in New York, I got heavily involved in 3D capture. So moving of physical assets into digital, which I find absolutely fascinating, particularly with my love for museums. I have this I don't want to say fetish, but maybe fantasy of scanning and creating the British Natural History Museum as a world in the metaverse. One of my dreams is to try and be able to capture and create that.
That would be an incredible feat.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're not working in this sphere and you're thinking about, your day-to-day experiences and what you see on a day-to-day basis, and
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about how to push the photography forward, what types of projects are drawing your attention? What do you find yourself most drawn to for 2022 and the near future?
I like still looking for these different things. I'm fascinated with this time lapse thing at the moment. The time lapse as a creative medium of what it provides me, I'm fascinated with. And I'm fascinated to see how I'm going to convert time lapses into NFTs. There's so many fun little parts of how the technical side of a time lapse works and how NFTs and the uniqueness of one-on-one assets works, that I'm playing around quite a lot with that in my head. So I'm going to be doing a lot more time lapsing, and I'm enjoying that on a personal level with photography. Where photography is going as a whole is a lot more tricky, because it's kind of like if people are thinking of Bitcoin at the moment, where Bitcoin was the first thing that came through, and then all these other currencies have kind of started developing, and now because they've started developing, the value of Bitcoin and so on comes down. If we think back to it, photography was the first image capturing technology. We look back to what Henry Fox Talbot did, starting with glass plates, and back to that side of image capture. And you look at things of that was the precursor, the Bitcoin, so to speak, of digital capture. And now look at us. You and I are sitting here talking on video on a tiny little lens that's this big in the top of my computer across the continent. And this is all a technology that's built on the infrastructure of what photography has done. So photography has already changed the world, and it's already morphed itself out of the top contender in imagery. I mean, that's the cycle of tech. One tech comes and the next tech comes, it grows on the last piece of tech and it improves it and moves it forward in a different direction. Then we got video. Then we got streaming. Then we got Zoom. Then we got, I don't know what's next. We're going into 3D capture. We're going into
Well, yeah, the
VR
whole
capture.
VR, AR, AI, holograms, holographs, the
Exactly.
whole
And then that's what
yeah,
that's what then intrigued me about the 3D scanning of great. Now I can put a dot point and I can overlay a JPEG over a dot point and get a completely realistic 3D that's natively 3D that I can walk around in.
yeah,
That's fun. You know what I mean? Now as I kind of call myself a digital native photographer because I was there from the whole lot. I mean, when we were on cruise ships, we first started off on film. And I remember actually transitioning the cruise ships both as an industry and on the actual ships, physically taking the ships and taking all of the camera equipment and the devs and so on off and replacing them with digital. I remember going through all of that process. So now we're just seeing it again in a different space. You know what I mean? New technology's coming and we're going, okay, so photography's still a part of it, but it's not what it was. You know what I mean? Because everything is still photography. Everything that is going to get captured, everything that's going to get moved is still photography. But where is the perceived value?
mm,
And that's the problem.
mm,
That's the problem in photography. Because before, let's just use real estate as an example. Let's use the real estate's a perfect example. I can talk directly to it. Where originally you'd have someone that was skilled enough to go in and do a professional photo shoot in the residence and be able to be paid for it.
right,
Now what's happened is because of the bulk of photographers that all are able to do a simple shoot like that, instead of those photographers being able to up their price level, it's been
mm-hmm,
a race to the bottom
mm.
of who can shoot it the cheapest and barely make a living doing real estate photography.
Yeah,
Because
see, I had hopes that with the virtual real estate that we might see a flip of that, because my
mhm,
thinking was that as people develop these storehouses in
mhm,
virtual lands, they would
mhm,
need furniture, clothes,
mhm,
accoutrements, furnishings,
mhm,
art on the walls. They're going to need all of that, and that's all going to be a marketable entity. So my
mhm,
hope had been that we would see an increase in art futures, photography futures, music futures, all of
mhm,
these cultural things that help us
mhm.
determine who we are as a people.
Look, I don't think photography is going away.
Mm,
I mean, because here's the other thing. When we start talking about uniqueness and NFTs, now all of a sudden photography, once people start realizing that there is no replicating a photo, it is a moment in history. It is a moment that will never be seen again. It is, by definition, scarce and unique. So as people perceive the value in uniqueness in the world of NFTs. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Digital scarcity.
yeah,
That's the whole game, is digital scarcity. And you start realizing that photographers out there already have those unique items. All of a sudden, this thing to comes to mind. So what if all of a sudden, all of the photographers out there who have, oh gosh, I mean, I've shown you gone through my Lightroom with you.
yes,
And just one of my collections is over 130,000 photos. Just one set is over 130,000 photos.
yes. But
What
there is
happens?
some.
What happens if I dump that as NFTs on the net?
Mm.
What if someone like Pete? Sorry, you have a question. I'm talked over you.
No, 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 no. But there is something to be said about the communicative nature of photography and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
a photo does speak 1,000 words. We have about 15 minutes left. I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to, if we can, share some more of your work that you've
Sure.
done on the stills in terms of
Where do we want to go with
showcasing.
this?
I'm sorry.
Which type of stills?
showcasing the humanitarian experiences that we may not have all necessarily been privy to. So you've got some shots of uh, vendors in Indonesia. You have some shots of farmers that are on the street. I mean, these are things that in the developed nations, in the developed
Mm-hmm.
world, first world, if you will, for lack of a better word, that we don't always have privy to. We don't get to see Cameroon, and we don't get to see
Mm-hmm.
um, Belarus, and we don't get to see Cyprus. So, can you show us a little bit more about the power of photography as an art form in transporting and communicating the human condition, which I think, by the way, is something really super necessary in the NFT and the metaverse world as well. So let's see
I
some
like
more of that.
I like your way of putting that, of seeing the human condition in NFTs.
Yes.
I think that's a very interesting way of putting it. Hold on,
Well,
let me see if I
especially as
can.
NFTs get now more towards this avatarish, cartoonish, fun, the llamas and the punks and the apes. And these are, and even in the
Mm-hmm.
case of some of the women projects, they're very sort of otherworldly, cartoonishy
Mm-hmm.
of images to the degree that we can step back conditions, that it can go a long way towards bridging the future with the past. Yeah, those are some perfect examples.
So this one, so this was
So
in
walk us through a couple of
Penang.
these, if you would. Yeah,
So this is in Penang in Malaysia, and
right.
the downtown in Penang it's this very old kind of artsy, culturally type area, and it's absolutely exquisite little artisans. And this guy was just sitting quietly painting. A crowded street, busy little shop, and there he sat, just painting. Calm as anything. And for me, it was the tranquility of someone practicing their art and being able to get lost completely in it.
Now, see, that's so funny because for me, it's the red and gold. It's the
Mm-hmm.
red and gold in the background and you know, this sort of, spirited figure we have in the very back here. That's the interesting juxtaposition against the artisan. So yeah,
Yeah,
very very interesting. Yeah.
I like I like this next one too. So
Oh, okay.
this is actually on a ship.
Hmm.
This was in dry dock, and they're actually fixing the atrium. So this scaffolding is actually built up 3 floors in the atrium. So that's actually the big hole in the middle of the ship. And they built the scaffolding up to fix this area. And for me, it was the colors again.
Yeah.
These yellows and blues, those opposite colors, always fascinate me when you can get opposite colors in an image. The other thing I remember about dry dock was always the case of you know why it takes so many people to do things because there's one person doing something and then there's 3 people standing around managing that person.
I like the sort of vibrational tone that this man in the background on the left hand side has.
Just
He's sort
walking
of
out.
there, but he's not there. He's sort of a uh, I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Well, I was lucky because it's quite dark. So this is a long exposure. So this is about a 15-second exposure. So while I'm taking this, I've set it up. I've got the little tripod up and running. But all I'm doing is sitting inside going, don't move, 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 in the hope that that guy that's actually sitting in the middle there doesn't move. That was it. That was the only thought on my head. What else is there? It's just a friend of mine
Oh
climbing.
wow. Yeah.
That was in Tulsa.
The
He fell.
determination on his face.
He fell about half a second after that photo was taken.
Oh,
He didn't make
he
it.
looks like he's struggling. Oh, this I love. Look at the
This is
spirit
a
of this beautiful little being.
yeah. This the see the gold in the reflection in the pavement.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is actually shot in Myanmar. This was in what's the capital city of Myanmar? Uh, Yangon. Engong, I think. I can't. But they have this big, massive gold temple that's plated in gold leaf. And this is actually at the entrance to that temple. And the gold that you're seeing reflected on the floor there is the sunset reflecting off this gold temple.
My, yeah.
And this little boy, it was him and his brother, and they're sitting there, they're throwing corn onto the road, catching the pigeons to take home and eat. So
I'm
that's
very
what they were
happy to do
doing.
it.
And the smile on their faces, and the bit that you
They look
can't
like
get
they're
on
having.
this, yeah, the bit that you can't get from the photo is the sound of the giggles of just little boys laughing while chasing pigeons.
Well, this is why I like your idea of matching the photography with sound and movement,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at different applications of how to advance photography as we all move forward in this new space. So yeah. Oh, look at, oh my gosh, look at his position. Wow. It looks like he's barely got his you know,
Okay,
his
so
balance, yeah.
this guy is a friend of mine. We were on the Tahitian Princess. We were in the middle of doing, we were cruising from New York to Singapore, and we were in. This is in Mumbai. You remember where the bombing happened in Mumbai in the hotel?
Sure.
This was the hotel that it happened in. You see the
Oh, is that right?
scaffolding?
Wow. Oh,
The
yeah.
scaffolding that you can see just above Luke's head here, that
Oh.
was from where they were fixing the hotel, the Mumbai hotel,
Oh man.
from the terrorist blast. That's what the scaffolding around the hotel is. So we got to Mumbai and we were all a little bit hungover from the night before. And Mumbai is hot and sweaty. And we got out to the plaza and the gates to Mumbai, the big statue and so on is just behind us. And there's this massive flock of pigeons. And I was setting up to take this photo without Luke in it. It was supposed to be just the pigeons and the hotel. And Luke decided he wanted to run in and scare all of my pigeons off. But what he didn't realize was there was a whole lot of corn underneath the pigeons.
Oh,
So he ran at the pigeons. The pigeons flew off, and he is about half a second from being squarely on his ass.
oh dear God.
He came down hard.
Well, he looks like he has a little bit of brawn to him anyway, but yeah, that's him against the world in terms of the numbers of these birds.
Yeah, so that was fun. So he literally ended up with a bruise on his ass from me getting this photo.
But it was worth it.
Of course. But these are the things when you're traveling with cruise ships. You travel with a bunch of people going around playing silly games, and you get the advantages of photos like this.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we have here. This is in
So
Penang again.
this is a perfect example of what I was talking about, because if depending on your exposure to the world, because not
Hmm.
everybody has had the opportunity, Richard, to travel as
Hmm.
as exclusively and internationally as you have, that you have the interesting position of being able to share and showcase with others a
Hmm.
different worldview. And I think that that's super important as we move forward into what we're going to term as an omniverse or a
Hmm.
universe, not a metaverse, but a conglomerated, interoperable metaverse of shared platforms and NFTs. But we
Hmm.
have to always keep in mind that there's going to be this cultural element, this political element, this
Hmm.
way of life, different religions, different people, different languages. How is all of that going to merge? So I love the fact that you're able to show, okay, here we have individuals that are not having a solely American experience or a solely UK experience,
Hmm.
that there are all of these pockets of underrepresented um, but significant
Hmm.
cultures, I guess I want to say. Yeah.
Hmm. I I have to agree with you on one thing with this the key thing that travel gives you. It's one very specific thing, and the more you travel, the more you realize that this is true. It gives you perspective,
Mm,
the ability to look and be able to see someone else's point of view
hmm
and understand that it is different because of where they're from,
hmm
and it's easier to do if you've been there. So, I mean, one of my most things that I'm most thankful for is when I meet someone, I'm able to say, okay, where are you from? And they can go, Netherlands. And I can go, oh, you've been to Amsterdam. I love walking around the canals in Amsterdam. And they go, oh, you've been to Amsterdam. And you're able to connect with people
right away.
very,
Yeah.
very quickly from that shared kind of experience or localized knowledge of somewhere. So perspective
Hmm.
and the ability to connect with people easily.
And that's actually my hope that as the metaverse develops too, that there'll be this
Mm-hmm.
place, a reference to place that
Mm-hmm.
transcends. So that if I say that I have the lot next to Snoop Dogg and Sandbox, that's a
Mm-hmm.
place, a real place with a real feeling, a real ambiance, a real a visual element. And then if I
Mm-hmm.
say to you, well, I've been at the casino in Decentraland, that
Mm-hmm.
we have a frame of reference to know what that placemaking looks like. And this is
Mm-hmm.
actually my hope for photography as well. That photography will help to bridge that
Mm-hmm.
placemaking need, because we'll still need that referential
Mm-hmm.
reference point.
Well, look, I mean, travel photography has been a thing for gosh knows how long. I mean, one of the things I'm interested to see is how do we bring the stories of things that happen in the metaverse out? So, what is it going to look like to have? I mean, we're the Metaverse News Network.
Yeah.
CNN has a group of photographers and content makers that go out and scour the real planet for news and so on. I'm interested to see how are you and I going to be able to tell the news that's
Yes.
happening in the metaverse? Are we going to be able to send virtual photographers into the metaverse to bring us 2D stories to share to the real verse?
Well, from your lips to God's ears. Let's hope that that is true.
You see,
Well,
I mean, I
Richard.
loved. We spoke about this the other day when you were talking about tour guides to the metaverse.
Mhm. Yes.
I mean, I think the next trick along that as well is okay, taking a tour in, but also bringing things from the metaverse out.
To the real world, right? We talk
Mm-hmm.
about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So this does not even begin to even touch the surface of the wealth of treasure trove that Richard has in terms of his ideas for photography, his still works, his growing video works, his documentary aspects, his training element, he also has an incredible way of being able to lift up younger photographers, teach them the way, show them the ropes, coalesce and curate exhibitions in photography. And these are all things that we're really looking forward to and hoping for in the next year to come. So, anyone who's listening or has an interest in this area, I highly encourage you visit Richard's IG, visit his website on richardmorant.com. Watch out for the Kulu Treks link. You've got to see this clip. It will absolutely transform you no matter what you're doing in your day to day living, transform you to a better place, a better way of being. And Richard, we just want to hope that and pray and trust that you'll continue to be that creative connector and collector and contributor as you continue along in your path.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing me into part of this Metaverse News Network world. It's a pleasure to be able to not just share with you, but learn from you. It's been an absolute joy to be able to partner with someone who knows part of the world that I don't. I mean, from being on cruise ships for so long, I didn't get to experience what's the growth of art and the growth of photography and so on shoreside. It's always been seen from a very separated point. So thank you for the education and thank you for the knowledge that you have shared. You have definitely been a guiding light in the
Well,
current pathway
as
that
you
I'm
can see,
on.
it's definitely a mutual admiration society here. So we want to wish everyone a good night. We have some exciting guests coming up for you in the latter part of January and the early part of February. We'll be promoting those and sharing those. And we would like to see a little bit more contribution from the listening audience. So please send us your questions, send us your ideas and suggestions for who you'd like to see, what you want to hear about, and how Richard and I can help move everyone forward. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Thank you, Richard, for sharing your work.
It's a pleasure.